Here we're going to go over 3 examples of solving by taking the square root. So first off, the x squared equals 25. So the opposite of squaring is square root. Just like if you had x plus 3 equals 10, if you wanted to undo that plus 3, you do the opposite of adding 3, which is subtracting 3. When you want to do the opposite of squaring to get rid of this square, you take the square root. And remember, what you do on one side of the equal sign, you have to do on the other side. So I'm going to take the square root on the right side as well. And what that does is it cancels out the square. So you're just left with an x. Now, if you put the square root of 25 into your calculator, it's going to tell you the answer is 5. But you need to know that it's also negative 5. Because just like 5 times 5 gives you 25, negative 5 times negative 5 also gives you 25. Negative 5 squared is also 25. So you can write it like that, or sometimes they'll write it like this, plus or minus 5. Now let's look at the one on the right. So for this one, before you take the square root to undo the square, what is being squared has to be by itself. So we need to move that plus 20 over and that 2 over to the right. So I moved that plus 20 by subtracting 20. I undid the multiplying by 2 by dividing by 2. Now x squared is by itself. Now I can undo the square. And remember, you do that by taking the square root. And I need to do that on both sides of the equal sign because the square root of a square cancels out because they're opposites. And then again, if you put the square root of 100 into your calculator, it's going to tell you that it's 10, but it's also negative 10. So the answer is plus or minus 10 because 10 times 10 is 100 and negative 10 times negative 10 is also 100. Now let's do the last one here, x squared equals 18. So if we do this, try to undo the square by taking the square root. If you put square root of 18 in your calculator, it's going to give you a decimal. And so what you do at that point is you break down the 18 into factors. What are the smallest numbers, those prime numbers that multiply together to give you 18? So you can do one of those prime factorization trees if you want. 18 is the same as 2 times 9. 2's prime, but 9 is the same as 3 times 3. So 18 is 2 times 3 times 3. So what the square root is saying, it's asking what is being squared. So if you look at this, 2 times 3 times 3, what is being squared? Well, 3 times 3 is 3 squared. 3 is what's being squared. So I can take that 3 out in front of the square root symbol. But the 2, there's only one of those, so I need to leave that underneath the square root. So the answer is 3 square root of 2.